Hi there, it is September 30th and we are celebrating here. It is our 50th show. Wow, that is quite amazing. We've been doing this for over a year and we started it as an experiment and we are still here going strong. So we're really happy that you are here as well. So we're going to go across the board and we have our special guest who's also a panelist. Michael Fricano is going to talk about Google Classroom, but we'll go across the board. Well, let's go to Michelle and Holly and then Michael. Michael will start the show off. Michelle?
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Colt, and I'm a librarian at Halikula Elementary School.
Holly?
Hi, I'm Holly Gates, and I'm a librarian at Haiku Elementary School.
And ta-da! Should get the special effects out. There you go. It is Michael Fricano.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Mike Fricano. I'm a tech integration specialist at Iolani School, and I'll be sharing about Google Classroom today. Want me to just jump right into it, or you have?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
Well, could I intro you first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Michael has been playing with Google Classroom since the summer, and he's already put together some actual tutorials for people, 3 or maybe 4 so far. So he's really into it and very much knows what's going on. So we're really happy that he's going to share some of his what he's learned. And here he is.
Okay. So for anyone who's not familiar with Google Classroom out there, Google Classroom is a brand new app by Google. It is part of the official Google Apps for Education suite, and it allows teachers to conduct class and assign work and communicate with their students via Google Classroom. So it's a web-based application through Google that you have access to through your Google Apps for Education account. It's not available for regular Google accounts. It's meant for education. But I have a presentation I put together that I'll present, and a link to that presentation as well as my resources are located on Linda's show notes, which I believe is in Linda's lower thirds.
Yes, bit.ly/grh50 notes.
Yeah. So if you go there, you'll have plenty of resources to check out for Google Classroom. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Okay, so I put together this presentation. It's a Google slide. Feel free to check it out later and refer back to it. I break down most of the basic features and functions of Google Classroom with some screenshots, and I may jump into the actual Classroom app from time to time as we're talking today. And feel free to jump in and ask questions, guys, if you need to, or if there's anybody in the Q&A, feel free to interrupt me and ask away. But I call this presentation the ins and outs of Google Classroom. It's still it's very brand new. Google officially released it in August to all Google Apps for Education domains. So it is very much new. Although it's officially released, I would still say that it's in beta, meaning that it's still being tested by teachers all over the nation. And Google has promised to continue to update it with new features throughout the school year. So I think we still have a lot more to look forward to. It's a great app, but it's not quite what it what it can be yet. And hopefully with everybody's testing and use and feedback, it'll become an even greater app. Okay. So I wanted to kind of talk about what Google Classroom does do for teachers and students, and then I'll mention a couple of things that Google Classroom does not do, because it does some great things, but it also doesn't do some things that we would expect it to do, but it doesn't do yet. So what does Google Classroom do? It's I refer to it as a workflow management system. So it manages that workflow process from the beginning of an assignment to the end of an assignment. from the beginning of a class to the end. And it helps to manage that process as students and the teacher works through various assignments and things like that. Google Classroom integrates seamlessly with Drive, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we progress through the show. But it works very well with Drive, and Drive and Classroom work together in a way that makes it very easy for the teacher and the students to manage their files and their assignments throughout the school year. What Google Classroom does, because it integrates with Drive, is it's set to automatically create a folder structure in Drive for teacher and student. So that's I think before Classroom, that was kind of one of the biggest complaints by teachers and students, is that I have to create these folders, I have to share it with my students. Sometimes the folders get moved around, or a student deletes it, and it can just be chaotic and messy. Well, Classroom solves that. It creates that folder structure automatically for the teacher and student, so they don't have to worry about that misplacement or the confusion of where things are. On top of that, it also automatically uses a file naming convention system. So when the teacher creates assignments in Classroom, depending on how you set up your assignment, it will automatically name the documents for the students in a way that makes it easy for the students and the teacher to know whose assignment is whose and which assignment students are working on. And I think most importantly, it helps to create a paperless classroom, which I hope all teachers are striving for, right? Reducing our use of paper and moving ourselves into the a digital realm, right, where we have access to things through pretty much any device, and it reduces our use of paper, most importantly. So it does do those things. Now, what does it not do? Well, right now it doesn't integrate with other Google apps. So it doesn't integrate with Calendar. It doesn't integrate with Blogger. It doesn't integrate with Sites. So it doesn't integrate with those things right now. But some of these apps teachers have requested integration for, like for example Calendar. It'd be nice if we created an assignment in Classroom and gave it a due date, and it automatically showed up in our students' calendars. That'd be awesome, but it doesn't do that right now. So you have to be aware of that, and hopefully that changes in the near future. As you can see in the title of my slide, Google Classroom doesn't do these things, but I say yet because it's always a possibility. The more feedback Google gets on these things that it does not do, the higher priority it becomes, and hopefully Google makes that change and adds that feature to Classroom. I've seen some teachers call it this, but Google Classroom is not a learning management system. We have things like Haiku, Edmodo, and other learning management systems that do far more and integrate with other software and programs that we use in our school, and Classroom doesn't do that. So it's really not a learning management system, and teachers have to understand that. Classroom is very limited in what it can do. I don't know if Classroom will ever become a full-fledged learning management system compared to Haiku and Edmodo, but in my opinion, it's not. So you have to be aware of that. And it currently, and this is a frequently requested feature, but it currently does not allow for more than one teacher to control the classroom. So right now, it's only one teacher per classroom in Google Classroom. But again, it's a frequently requested feature by teachers right now, so hopefully that changes and we can allow more than one teacher to control the classroom. Because in some cases, there's more than one teacher in a class, or there's a regular education teacher, and there's a special education teacher, or some other kind of resource teacher. So teachers, having the ability for multiple teachers to have access to a classroom would be great, but it does not do that yet. Okay, so I'm gonna walk through some of the basic features of Google Classroom. So these are the things that Google Classroom currently does do and has as part of its list of features. So it allows teachers to invite students, so it has an invitation system, but you can also allow access for students using access codes, and we'll dig a little deeper into that. every classroom that a teacher creates has an about page, and we'll take a look at that. Teachers can create two things in Classroom. They can create announcements, and they can create assignments. And then with announcements and assignments, there are built-in comment threads. So there's the option, well, there's the ability. It's not an option. You can't turn it on and off, but there's the ability for students and teachers to communicate with each other through these comment threads. Of course, I already mentioned it, but there's Google Drive integration, and we'll take a look at how that works. And there is a very basic, very simple grading function in Classroom. Okay, so let's start with invitations versus access code. So once a teacher creates a Google Classroom, in order to get their students into that classroom, the teacher can either send an email invitation to those students, or the teacher can allow them access with an access code. Okay, now inviting students via email, of course students have to have access to their Gmail. I know in some cases some schools don't allow students access to Gmail. So if that's the case, then you wouldn't use the invitation feature. You would have to use access code. But what it does is the teacher can invite students. It sends them an email. When they open that email, there's a link inside, and they have to click that link in order to accept the invitation, and then they become a member of the classroom. So inviting a student via email doesn't automatically enroll them in the class. The students still have to click that link in the email to become a member. And there's the access code. The access code is it's a randomly generated code made up of either lowercase letters or numbers, or a combination of both. And when students want to join the class, they have a join option on the Classroom homepage, and they just type that code into the box, and they instantly become a member of that class. So in my opinion, the access code is the easiest way to get kids in. It's less time consuming, and it doesn't rely on the use of email. And the teacher has some options with the class code. The teacher can reset the code, and then it'll randomly select a new code. And so that new code then needs to be used, and the old code is trashed. It's unusable. And the teacher can also disable the code. So if the teacher's done inviting all the students and she doesn't want anybody else to join, if the teacher disables it, then the code becomes unusable and nobody can join until the teacher re-enables it. So the teacher does have has some control over how that access code is used and who can use it. Okay, so that's invitations versus access codes. And my recommendation, use the access code. I mean, if you spend 5 minutes at the beginning of class and you have kids join via the access code, it's a lot easier process than I think the invitation is. Okay, with every classroom that a teacher creates, there is an about page. So if you look at my screenshot here, there's 3 options at the top of Classroom. Actually, I'll jump into Classroom real quick. So when a teacher's in a class, or when a student is in a class, it looks something like this. And there's 3 options across the top bar. There's the stream, and you can think of the stream as like your Facebook stream. Right? Every new post is on the top, and all the old stuff gets moved down the stream. But there's also an about page. So as the teacher, you can set up this about page to provide your students with that necessary information they need throughout that class during the school year. So the teacher can, of course, give the class a name, give it a description. They have the option of listing, which room that class is located in the school. And for students, there's a link where they can send a direct email to the teacher. And there's also a link to the Google Drive folder that's created when students join the class. And we'll talk more about that later. But also in the About page, the teacher has the option to add materials. So if you look at it, I have 3 examples of things that can be added. So for example, a teacher might want to include the class syllabus, which could be a PDF, a Google document. That syllabus could be on a Google site or some other website if you wanted to. In this case, I have it in a Google Doc, so I've attached that Google document to my About page here. And so students could just click on the link and it jumps them to that Google document, which contains my syllabus. The teacher can also attach YouTube videos. So I have an example here of a YouTube video that students could click on and they could watch that YouTube video if they have access to YouTube. And then the teacher can also attach links. So here's a link to a website. So that could be your class site, some kind of resource site that you want your students to access during the school year. And the teacher can add more materials. So pretty much throughout Classroom, you have the ability to attach any kind of file that you can think of, whether it's a picture, some kind of ebook, smart notebook files, PDFs, pretty much any kind of file that you can think of, you can attach to different sections in Classroom, including the About page. So as you can see on my slide here, so the teacher can include the name and description of the class. It has an email link and a link to the Drive folder for students to access. And you can add materials like your syllabus, YouTube videos, and links. So it's a great starting point for your students when they join the class. And it's a great place to encourage your students to go back to if they need to access certain materials or resources. So think of that About page as like your class starting point. Okay, so in Classroom, there are two things that a teacher can create in the stream, as I showed earlier. One is called an announcement. So at the top of the stream, the teacher has the option, as you can see in the screenshot here, to create an announcement. And when the teacher clicks announcement, it looks like this. And think of the announcement as a way to inform or remind your students of something, whether it's, don't forget to study for the test, or the final test will be on Friday, or your project is due on Monday. Right? So use it as a way to remind your students. And so you just have one line of text, and you can type as much text as you want into that box. With announcements, the teacher can also attach a variety of things. So just like in the About page, you have those same attachment options. You can attach pretty much any file that you can think of. You can attach a Google Drive file. So if you have a presentation you want them to watch, or you have a document you want them to look at, you can attach those things. You can also attach YouTube videos. And you can only attach YouTube videos. And then you can also attach links. So if you wanted to attach like a Vimeo video, you would probably attach it as a link, not as a YouTube video. But teachers can attach any variety of those types, and I'm not sure. I don't think there's a limit on how much you can attach. So you can attach as many things as you want to an announcement. And with every announcement, there's a public comment thread. So if I jump back into my Classroom here, go to the stream. Let me see here. I'll create a quick announcement. Study for your test tomorrow. Post. So once I post it, the students will see it at the top of their stream. And if you see here, there's an option to add a comment. So this is a public comment thread. And the reason I call it a public comment thread is because everybody in the class can see it, no matter who's posting to it. So if a student posts a question in that comment thread, everybody else in the class can see it. If a teacher posts an answer to that in that comment thread, everybody else in the class can see it. So it's a great way to encourage discussion, allow students to ask questions, to clarify whatever it is you're announcing. So using that public comment thread is a good option. You can't turn off the comment thread. Okay, so that's something that you can't do right now. I've seen that requested by teachers, the option to turn it on and off, but right now it's a feature that's there whether you like it or not. Okay? But as a teacher, you do have the power to delete comments from other students, and you can edit your own comment and delete your own comment. So the teacher does have some control over that comment thread. And also the reason I call it a public comment thread is because there are private comment threads, which come in a little later too. So I could add a comment here. Said the test is tomorrow, and post it. Once that comment's posted, all the other students in the class will see that, and I have the option to edit and delete my comment as well as other students' comments. Okay, so that's an announcement. And the other thing a teacher can create are assignments. So this is where Classroom really becomes interesting and fun. So a teacher uses the assignment to assign classwork or homework for students. Just like in an announcement, a teacher can attach any type of file, links, YouTube videos, as well as Google Drive files. Within an assignment, a teacher can track and grade the student work once it's turned in. And the teacher and the students can use the public comment thread in the assignment for questions and discussions, just like you can in an announcement. So if I jump back into my class and I created an assignment, so I could give that assignment a name. Assignment 1 about you. Open your copy of the Google document and fill it in so I can learn more about you. Some of the directions there. Yeah, with an assignment, you can assign a due date. Maybe I want this due on Friday. And you have the option of assigning a time as well. So maybe I want this done by 8 a.m. on Friday. And after I complete this, Classroom will track who's turned it in and who's late, and it'll tell you as well as the student whether they've turned it in, whether it's upcoming, and whether they're late on completing it. I have a Google document that I'm going to give students access to. So I have a getting to know you file here. And you notice with any file that you attach, you have 3 options here. So in this case, I have a Google document, and I can give students the right to view this file if I just want them to look at it. I can give all of my class the right to edit the file if I want them to collaborate. Or, in this case, I can make a copy for each student. So Classroom will take this document, and it will automatically make a copy for every student in my class, and it will use a naming convention to name that document for the students. Okay, so I'm going to choose that option. That's something that, you know, it's every teacher's nightmare when they create a document in Classroom, and they got to show their students how to make a copy, and they got to tell their students how to, you know, don't forget to name it correctly. I want your name in the title of the document, and some student forgets to name it correctly, or they forget to put their name in the document, right? So in Classroom, it does all that for you. Teacher doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. I could attach other things, but I'm not going to. And another great function. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's a question from Christine.
Yep.
And she asked, does each student have to have a personal email account for this feature? I'm guessing I'm not sure what she means by this feature. Maybe the assignment feature or the entire Classroom?
Yeah, so Classroom, as I mentioned earlier, Classroom is an app that's part of Google Apps for Education. So for any student or teacher to use this, you have to have a Google Apps for Education account, which your account, your username is basically your email address, although students don't have to have access to email. They just use that address as their username to log in. But they have to have a Google Apps for Education account in order to access Classroom.
And actually, but Mike, just to clarify really quick, if you went with the class code option, would they still need, would an administrator still need to turn email on for kids, or no? We can just use the class code option.
No, students can have email turned off, and they can still use Classroom.
Right. Okay. Because the code, and then I guess I know Chris is at our school, and she's a first grade teacher. So one thing to kind of keep in mind is, Mike, as you're talking or as you're looking at this, do you think it's something that the lower L could navigate? I mean, if we give them a code, that's easier for them to get in, or do you think that it's still takes a little bit of sophistication to find documents.
It does take some sophistication. I mean, it requires the ability to understand how to navigate a website, and there's lots of different buttons and things to click on and scrolling, and so of course with the with the younger grades, I guess it's possible, but that would depend on how comfortable the teacher is with with the app and with Google in general.
Right. So in the past, our first graders have used Google Presentation, and we've just put the link on the teacher's webpage, which Chris is really good at teaching her kids how to navigate her webpage and to electronic resources.
Yeah.
And the problem with that open link, though, is that the kids couldn't insert images. It's a kind of a safety feature in Google that anyone with the link can't just insert images. So it seems like if we could teach the kids, though, to log in and then gave them the code, that way they could have access to a Google presentation and then put in their information.
Yeah, well, the class code, students only have to use the code once. Once they
right.
Part of the class, they're part of the class forever until the teacher removes them. So the class code is a one-time feature.
Yeah, that's neat. Hey, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to slow you down, but I'm just thinking ahead with a project with Chris. This might be a good solution.
Yeah. So I mean, in the case of a project, Classroom is a great way to manage that whole process, right? Okay, so I just wanted to point out one more feature in Classroom. If a teacher has multiple classes set up, and in some cases, especially in the upper grades, where a teacher may have 2-3 periods of the same class with different students, that teacher may have 3 separate classrooms in Google Classroom, but she wants all of those classes to have the same assignment. So if you do have multiple classes, you can duplicate the assignment to any of your other classes just by checking the boxes here. So if I wanted all 4 of these classes to have the same assignment, I could check them, and when I assign it, it'll create that assignment for all of those classes that I checked. So that's a really great feature too. So that way you don't have to go into each individual class and recreate that assignment 2, 3, 4 times. Okay, so once I assign this, so when I assign it, it's going to take a minute to assign, because it's going to create a copy for each student in my class. So you see here it says assigning. Right now it's doing all that behind the scenes stuff. And now my assignment has been posted to the stream. So this is what the teacher sees. And as you see over here on the side, it's tracking who's done and who's not done. So the teacher knows instantly how many students have completed the assignment and how many students have still not yet completed it. And just by clicking on these links, I can see who's not done with the assignment. There it goes. Oh, sorry, it's refreshing. Okay, so here are my, there are no student submissions for the selected filter. So none of my students have completed this assignment. And so here's one student who's not done. So right now I'm in the assignment. I'm in the assignment status window. So as a teacher, I can track that. And this status will update depending on what the student's doing.
So Mike, I have a question about this, though. At any time, are you able to scroll over the student's document or see the progress of it?
Yeah, so, okay, so the way, that's a good question. So the way this works, in this assignment example, I've created a document and I've made a copy for each student. So what that does is it gives a copy, it makes a copy for every student. That student in their drive has access to that file, and they are the owner of that Google document. So they have ownership. And the teacher has the right to view every document within their class. So the teacher can always go in and look at that document and add comments if the teacher wants to. Okay? I don't know if I'm going to see it yet, But once a student's finished and they turn in that document, the student loses ownership and the teacher gains ownership of that document. And the student only has the right to view. So imagine when you give your student a worksheet, a paper worksheet, they complete that worksheet and they physically give it to you. So now that the teacher has it, the student has no control over that document anymore. So Classroom is kind of replicating that process by taking the student's right to edit it away from them once they turn it in.
So actually then, I mean, I do understand that to a point, but then does that mean that as a teacher I have to reopen editing for them, or do they, like, what if we want to, they want to do revisions on it? I'm able to send it back to them?
See if I don't have an example here. Let me go back. I'm gonna look for another. I'm gonna jump into one of my other classes and look for an example of a student who's turned in their work.
And actually, let me ask a question while you're doing that. I'm just wondering, Mike, is there a way that I, as a teacher, like if I don't want it to ever be uneditable by a student, could I turn that off so they actually do still own it, or that's not a feature I can turn on and off?
Not when you choose to make a copy for each student. If you were to, if I were to initially set it to only allow students to view that document, then they would only ever be able to view it.
Right.
So because I need a copy, I'm giving them their own copy, which they own.
Yeah.
Okay, so here I'm in a different classroom in a different assignment, and these students have turned in their work. And once the students turned in their work, I own it, and I have the right to edit it and make comments on it. Again, the student only has the right to view it. So once it's turned into me, I can grade it. I can give that assignment a grade. And you see I've done that here. Oops. Okay, and then once I'm done grading it, I check that student and I return it to them. You guys see that button there?
Mm-hmm.
So once I return that assignment back to the student, they regain their ownership, and then I become the viewer again. So then I'm giving them back the right to edit. So it'd be like taking that paper assignment and giving it back to the student and asking them, okay, can you fix these mistakes? Can you add to it? Right? So in Classroom, once I return it, it's handed back to them, and then they can revise it, they can edit it, and then they could turn it back into me. I gain ownership, I can edit it, I can check it and adjust the grade, I can return it back to them. So this process could go on and on and on as long as the teacher and the student wants it to. So think of it in terms of like a writing assignment, right? You want them to create the first draft and turn it in. You provide feedback and edit the document, return it back to them. They then revise it for a second draft and turn it back into you. So this can all occur within the same assignment. Does that make sense?
So as it goes back and forth, and the teacher has it, student has it, teacher has it, neither the other person cannot see it, right? So you couldn't actually look at a document, make a comment, and then they would look and reply, kind of thing.
The teacher always has the ability to view the document and comment on it.
How does that work? Is it in her drive? Is it in the teacher's drive or student's?
No. Okay. So what's here? You know what? Let me.
Is it in the shared folder? You don't have to.
No. It's So no. What you're getting into is how Drive is integrated in the classroom. So let me jump, because that's a good. I think that'll kind of clarify the how this whole workflow process works.
Mm-hmm.
So let me jump to that. I'm just going to jump around here. Okay, so in Classroom, when a teacher creates a classroom, they get a folder automatically created in their drive called Classroom, as you can see in the left side here. So in this screenshot, we're looking at the teacher's Google Drive view. Okay, when a teacher creates a classroom, a subfolder is created in the Classroom folder and it takes on the name of that classroom that the teacher titled it. So here we have the main classroom folder, and then there's a practice class folder named after a classroom that this teacher's created. Okay, then when a teacher creates an assignment in that classroom, every assignment gets its own subfolder. Okay, so here there's a getting to know you assignment, and the teacher has a subfolder for that. And what happens is any files or documents that the students create or have access to are all stored in that teacher's assignment folder. So the teacher will always have access to those documents. And depending on what stage in the process the students are, the teacher can always view it and can always comment on it. And so that's all stored in that assignment folder.
So it's automatically shared for
yes,
viewing.
The files are automatically shared between the student and the teacher within Classroom. Now, the folders that are created for the teacher and the student are not shared folders. They're individual folders created for every teacher and student. And so the teacher and the student doesn't have any kind of access to anybody else's folders. Okay, so the folders are all separate. They're all individual. They're not shared. But depending on how the assignment's created, the assignment files that the teacher creates are shared. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's where the Drive integration comes in. So that whole folder structure is automatically created for every student and the teacher. And any kinds of files that are attached or any kind of Google files that are created or given to the students in an assignment are automatically shared between the teacher and the student, so that the teacher always has access to it, no matter what stage in the process the students are in. But depending on what stage they're in, the ownership will change. Okay? And when the teacher has ownership of a student's work, the student can only view it and cannot comment and cannot see comments. They can only see their document. They can only view it. Okay, so are you guys following me there?
Mm-hmm.
The assignment is probably the most complex feature because of all the things that it does. So just by kind of messing with all the different features in the assignment and playing around in it within a practice class, you'll start to understand. And a teacher should really understand how Google Drive works before getting into Classroom. Because if you don't understand how Google Files work and how sharing permissions work and how folder structures work, then it's going to be hard to kind of figure out how this whole assignment process works in Classroom. But students really don't need to access their Drive at all to use Classroom, because they can access all of their assignment files in Classroom without ever having to go to Drive. And the sharing permissions are automatically changed for them, and everything's named for them. So, in theory, a student could just stay in Classroom and complete all their assignments. Okay, so I'm not going to go through everything here, but the assignment has a lot of features built into it. There's a lot of features that the teacher has access to, and there's a lot of features that students have access to, and they're all listed here on this slide. So feel free to go through that, and if you're able to get access to Classroom and you can create a practice class, then definitely play around with the assignment feature and try to understand how all of these different features in an assignment works, because it does a lot. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the comment thread earlier, but again, with every announcement or assignment, there is a public comment thread that everybody can see and everybody has access to. The comment threads cannot be turned off. They're always there. So it's a really good idea to talk to your kids about the purpose of the comment thread. And they need to understand that everybody can see it. It's not there for students to just talk to each other about whatever they want to talk about. It should be focused on the announcement or the assignment or on whatever is being discussed in class, and that the teacher has complete control over what's in that comment thread. So talking to your students about that is a good idea before you really get into using Classroom, because I've heard of teachers who they have students posting things that are inappropriate or not focused, and so then they have to go back and talk to their kids about that. So if you talk to your kids up front about it, how it works, then being able to use the comment thread for asking questions or having discussions about classroom topics is a great use of that feature. So as I mentioned, there's public comment threads and there's private comment threads. So when the teacher goes into an assignment, like you see here, I can expand these individual students' assignments. Within each student's assignment, there's a private comment thread. So if I were to add a comment here for this number 10 student, you need to work on this more, post it, only that student will see that comment. Nobody else in the classroom sees it. Okay, so there is a private comment thread built into assignments as well.
Hey, Mike, I'm sorry if you've already answered this, but are students able to send announcements, or not announcements, that's not the right term, but these kinds of messages back and forth to each other, or no, it's only teacher to student or student to teacher?
Yeah, it's only, comments are only available in an assignment or an announcement, or a teacher can communicate with an individual student inside of an assignment in that private comment thread. Students, I can't get to a student view right now, but at the top of the stream, there is an option for students to share with their class, and so they can post something to the stream if they want to as well. It's not called an announcement to them, it's just a share with your class.
Okay, but they can initiate a conversation.
Yeah, so they can initiate a conversation. But the teacher has control over that. So the teacher can delete that post if they want to, or they can delete that comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Does it have revision history in case somebody gets quirky and then they say, oop, delete?
No,
okay.
Unfortunately not. So there's no way to go back. So if a student posts something inappropriately and then the student deletes it, there's no way for the teacher to go back and retrieve that. It's just gone. But, I mean, on the bright side, at least the student reflected on that and chose to delete it themselves rather than getting caught, right? Okay, so we talked about Google Drive integration. Okay, so grading in Google Class. So the grading system right now is very basic. It doesn't do what Edmodo does or those other learning management systems. And within every assignment, the teacher can assign a grade if they choose to. But the grades overall are not pulled together in any way into a grade book. There's no kind of grade book involved here. It's just grades within individual assignments. But the grading system in Classroom is based on a point scale between 1 and 100. The teacher can customize that point scale. So as you can see in this example here, this assignment is, is a grade out of 5 points. So you can click inside that point box and you can customize how many points you want to assign to that assignment. Or the teacher can choose to have that assignment ungraded, meaning the teacher's just not going to give a grade for that assignment. So there is that option too. And the teacher can also download the grades within the assignment. So at the top of an assignment page, there is a download button, and it creates a CSV file, like a spreadsheet, with all the students' names and the grade they were assigned for that assignment. So if you need to export the grades and then pull them into some other grading system that you have, you do have that option. You can download it.
That's a nice option.
Yeah. Again, the only downside is there's no grade book, so Classroom doesn't pull all the grades together for the entire class, unfortunately. Hopefully that may be a feature that they add in the future, because that's also frequently requested right now.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that has been mentioned is that it's arranged by first name.
Yeah, yeah. So you can.
Advantage.
Yeah, so you can. Yeah, the students are all arranged by first name, and there's no way to change that. But
Yep.
another feature that teachers request is the ability to organize by last name instead, because a lot of teachers would rather organize their rosters by last name. But right now, that's not a feature. So. Okay, so I also just wanted to share, as mentioned earlier by Linda, I did start a Google Classroom video series. So there's lots of videos out there that walk you through how to create an assignment or how to grade or how to invite students. But there's a lot of features that are lesser known and they're not really well explained by Google or by anyone else. So I started a video series where I create very short tutorial videos that explain some of the lesser known features of Classroom. So feel free to explore those. I'll be adding more in the future. As we play around with Classroom more, there's more ahas and more moments where you realize, oh, well, that doesn't really make sense, but it works that way. So I'm creating videos based on that. And just to give you an example, I have a video that explains how that whole assignment workflow and ownership process works. Because again, it's not explained anywhere that the student owns it and the teacher owns it and the student owns it. So so my video kind of explains how that process works so teachers understand that the sharing permissions are being changed within the workflow process. There are email notifications involved in Classroom, but it doesn't tell you anywhere how you get email notifications or when you and students get them. So I have a video that explains that. I also have a video that explains how the class code works and also how the upcoming assignments box works. So every student has this upcoming assignments box, but it works in a very specific way. So I explain that in my video, which isn't explained anywhere else by Google. So feel free to check out those videos.
Isn't there a time limit on when that shows up? I understand that within a week it won't show up.
It shows assignments that are due within like 5 to 6 days, I think. Any assignments beyond that, it doesn't show. And it even counts the weekend. So, knowing that and being able to explain that to your students can, help them use the classroom system a lot better.
Right. I wonder what the reasoning behind that is.
I don't know. I mean, those are good questions. Those are questions I had. So I felt like that needed to be explained somewhere. So that's why I started this video series. So feel free to check those out. And then I just have a handful of resources here that I've gathered or found other places on the web. So I created a Pinterest board of Google Classroom resources that is a collaboration between a couple other people that use Google Classroom and I. So we're constantly adding new blog posts, YouTube videos, website resources to that board. So that's a great place to start if you're looking for information and tutorials and things like that. Google does have a training website, and they call it Classroom Level 1, the basics. So they kind of break down how these basic features work as well. And then there's also a great Google Classroom community on Google+, which is very active. It has a couple thousand members, and people are constantly asking questions, and it's a great community of people helping each other figure things out. And there's also a Google group, which is like a forum for Google Classroom. So it's a great place also to go if you have questions or need assistance. And there are people from Google that monitor that group and help answering questions and to clarify things. So check those things out. And then, of course, if you have any questions, comments, or you need some help, I'm always available. And here are my social media links.
Neat.
And that's it.
Great, fantastic. We have a comment from Jared.
Jared?
He was making a comment about I think it's about the Google Classroom. He says, excuse me, I'm not a teacher, but from a student's perspective, that pale blue background on the web page strains your eyes against the white text boxes. If you could change it to a darker shade, it would be more pleasant to look at while you work.
Yeah, you can. Right now, you can change the theme of your classroom by going to this link here. And right now, Google only has pre-made themes. You can't upload your own, but hopefully they add that feature too. So there are pre-made themes here, and each header image has its own color theme. You know, so if I switch to these purple bubbles, it'll change to like a purple theme.
I think he was talking about being in the assignment, because I noticed that when you were talking about the assignment, it has that blue, light blue thing at the top, which I didn't notice until he said it.
Well, like, oh, this.
Okay, so when you turned it to purple, it didn't stay blue then.
Well, what happens is these buttons are grayed out right now, meaning I can't use them.
Uh-huh.
But when I check a student, then they become active.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I guess like with the light color background and the white.
I think that's what he was mentioning.
Yeah, there's no way to customize that right now. But hopefully, I'm sure Google is great at allowing people to customize their apps, like we see in forms now. So hopefully, the ability to choose your own color theme and to customize the background colors and all that will eventually come. But right now, you're limited to what's in the what Google provides you.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I never noticed that before, but now I will.
Yeah.
Cool. That was a fantastic presentation, Michael. I really like how clearly you explain things, and I have to make a comment on how cool I love that font that you used, the chalkboard with the colors. That was very effective. And if people are watching, this is our 50th show. That's why we're wearing our Google hats. That's right. It kind of like, one foot in front of the other, and we got to 50. We just didn't really think about it. But yeah, that's why we're festive today. Any questions from Michelle or Holly about Michael's presentation? Fantastic presentation.
Well, more just about Google Classroom. You know, lots of speculation had been what would happen to Hapara then. But interesting, because some of our teachers who were excited to try Google Classroom actually abandoned it because they liked Hapara so much better, so they don't do anything with it. Of course, there is a cost with Hapara. Yeah. I have to say, as a resource teacher, what I like about Hapara is that I can push assignments out to all of the students. So I really like that feature. I also like in Hapara how I can just mouse over my entire class at once and see when they last access the assignment, and actually the assignment, the doc itself can pop up and I can see what they've created. Yeah. So, I mean, I think Google Classroom is off to a great start, but I think right now I'm glad that we decided to still pay to continue Hapara. It'll be interesting to see if there's ever a kind of merge, or what what each does. Yeah. Mike, I'm also thinking though that it is, I think it is kind of a preliminary LMS. I mean, I thought you said it's not, but you know, just like Blackboard, it has announcements. It has a jumping off page where you can have links to resources. And actually, even though you said there isn't yet integration of sites and Blogger, and I totally understand what you're saying, on that About page, you could actually have a link to a blog or link to your site, or you can build those links in yourself. I mean, I realize the grading system is kind of limited with just the point system. Maybe not everybody uses that, but it just seems like it offers teachers a neat getting started preliminary LMS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not Hapara. Hapara is great, but yeah, it can be pricey. But it's in my opinion, it's worth the price for what Hapara can do. And Classroom it's not there yet. And I mean, I don't we could speculate, but I don't know what Google's intention is. Like, do they want to create a full-fledged LMS that's offered for free to teachers, or are they just giving us some basic tools for managing our classroom? So it'll be interesting to see how Google continues with Classroom and what features they add to it.
Well, in a sense, that's kind of their MO, though, like making things free and accessible. So, for instance, before we were all using Google Drive, we were paying thousands of dollars in licenses for another word processing company's tools. And so now they've made them free. And then I guess in a sense, you know, but except there are some free ones too, aren't there? Free money management systems.
I mean, Edmodo is free, right? Haiku's free, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think there's some fees. There is a free version, I believe, of Haiku, but then I think if you want other features, you need to pay. And Schoology also has a free version. And then isn't Blackboard Collaborate a free learning management system?
I think you gotta pay for Blackboard.
Or Course Sites. It's Course Sites. Megan would know. Course Sites, I think, is the free version.
Yeah. I mean, it's my dog in the background.
Oh, I love the dog.
But yeah, I mean, and Linda posted this, but do you guys see what's coming to Google Drive for Google Apps for Education? Unlimited storage space.
Unbelievable.
For as much as you want in your Google Apps for Education account. Not regular Google accounts, but Google Apps for Education. So that's a game changer. I mean,
huge.
We're always picky about storing videos and pictures in our Google Drive because it consumes so much space. And we want to be able to store those things in there, but now we will be able to.
Well, there is a limit. I think there's something about like 5 terabytes, but who's going to be able to use?
Well, that's
what is that about? That's something different.
One file. So for one file, you have a limit.
One file.
Yeah, I think that's what it said. Yeah, one file. But
so we're thinking
the files you can store will be unlimited. So.
Like movies and such.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that'll be great.
I'm excited. Your dog is something else. He's got something going over there. He looks kind of Kolohe to me. Great. Well, fantastic show. We are at the top of the hour, and Michael is available to talk, right? I can say this, Michael. You're available if people want to ask questions about Google Classroom, because you seem to be on it, current and interested as well. Is that?
Yeah, I try to be. We have a lot of teachers at my school that are giving it a try this year and loving it, so we try to help them out as much as possible, and then just trying to understand how it works and how it's evolving and where it's going. It's interesting.
And I think it's great that they're experimenting. You know, that's what it's all about. And it's pretty simple. You could opt in and opt out if you didn't like it. It's not a huge investment. One of our teachers has really gotten into it, and she's basically a newbie even to Google Apps. So you said that you should know about Drive, but she just went right in. The students help her a lot because they know about it already. So you don't have to be like perfect and know a lot about it to try it. So I would recommend people try it.
Yeah, I think Google's initial view on Classroom was to create a system that made it easy for new teachers to become familiar with Google Apps, and because Classroom has that whole automated behind-the-scenes system built into it, it simplifies a lot of that process of organizing and getting your classroom set up and Drive and in Google. So they created a system that really makes it easy for teachers to get started. But now so we have those new teachers that are jumping on board. But how do we make it a better app for those teachers that are more experienced? I know Kubrick and Doctopus are now Andrew Stillman and his people made it kind of work with Google Classroom, so they've been testing that out, and I've heard a lot of success with that. For those of you familiar with Doctopus and Kubrick, they're add-ons for spreadsheets and docs. So he found a way to integrate it in Classroom, and people thought it wouldn't be possible, but he did. So there's a way to take Classroom a step further, but you just got to be familiar with the way everything works.
He's amazing, Andrew Stillman. Yeah. Okay. I know a lot more. The slideshow that you did, Michael, is that available on the notes?
Yep.
Correct. Okay, and the cool thing about that is the links are all live, so people can definitely pursue. And thanks again for such a clear explanation of it.
Welcome.
And yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's it for today. Again, happy 50th show to us. And we will see you at number 51.
Don't forget, tomorrow begins Connected Educator Month.
That's right. You want to tell a little bit about it? I think Michelle's really involved in it. Are you going to be in that hangout, both of you?
The kickoff chat?
The kickoff chat?
I think there's a Twitter chat and a hangout kind of going on simultaneously, so I
Uh-huh.
don't know what time it is. I haven't looked at that yet. But
Okay.
yeah, but Connected Educator Month begins tomorrow, and if you go to the website, I think it's connectededucator.org, connectededucators.org. Lots of things going on, so sign up and check out all the events.
There's a librarian thing going on October 7th. Connected Librarian Day. I know that's not what it's exactly called, but yeah, it's cool. Okay, here we go. Thanks again, Michael, and thanks, and Holly. Holly's there, but not quite there, and Michelle. Fun. Happy 50th, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.